Hi guys, and welcome to the first in a three-part series about living with my mental health. This episode is going to be about my diagnosis, the lead up to my diagnosis and the actual going to the doctors, what they did about it, and the immediate sort of week or so afterwards. The second episode is going to be about my daily life, so that includes the good days and the bad days, and just how I cope with that, what I do to help myself, that sort of thing. And then the third and final part is going to be about the future. So it's going to be lots of question marks, lots of uncertain things, but also my hopes and aspirations for myself and my mental health in general. So looking back, I think my mental health has actually been quite bad since I was about 16. I didn't get any form of mental health help or diagnosis until I was 23. So in 2015 was when I finally got diagnosed. It was the darkest stage of my life, I would say, definitely. I was living in Ipswich. I had just finished my job at the museum, which I absolutely loved, but unfortunately the contract came to an end and it could not be renewed. So I'd gone back to retail. I did do a video on why I hated that job, which I will link somewhere or at the end, I don't know. But I did do a video, so I don't want to go too much into that, but basically I was working ridiculously hard for below minimum wage for a company that was very, very corrupt and very immoral. And to top it all off, I had just got out of a very passionate relationship. It was probably my first love. It didn't end well. I tried to keep going far too long with what was very unhealthy, and now looking back, that was such a damaging thing for me to do to my mental health and to my heart in general. So yeah, it actually took me having a breakdown at work. Oh, sorry, that's my phone. But it actually took me having a mental breakdown at work on one of my members of staff, one of my sales assistant, who also struggles with mental health, and she was actually going to close the shop because I was so ill, and she was going to take me to A&E because I was what doctors call passive suicidal, which is horrible to say out loud actually, but passive suicidal means that you don't care if you're going to live or die. So you're not actively going to commit suicide, you're not going to take an overdose, or you're not going to hang yourself or shoot yourself or anything like that. But say if a bus hits you, or if you die in your sleep, or if your house burns down, that sort of thing, you don't care if you are dead, basically. And that's how I was feeling, and it was really rough. Just everything piled in on top. So, but I convinced her that I didn't need to go to A&E. I just needed to vent, basically, and I would cry, and then an hour or so later I came back up to work. On my way home from there, I booked a doctor's appointment. Now, I can only speak from an English point of view for the NHS. It's maybe slightly different in Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland, and it's certainly different to the other places in the world, but English NHS is really struggling, and I managed actually to get a doctor's appointment as an emergency for 2 days after my breakdown. I said, you basically have to say it's an emergency, otherwise you'll be waiting 3 weeks to get your appointment. So I got my appointment and I went in, and I saw a doctor. Now, the other thing with the NHS is it's so underfunded, and the mental health side of it is even more underfunded. So I went in and I had a 5-minute consultation, and that was my diagnosis. And the doctor sat me down. This is no reflection on the doctor at all, just the service in general. She sat me down and she gave me a questionnaire to fill in, which is when I first heard about passive suicide. And she then just basically said, right, I'm going to sign you off for 2 weeks as of immediately. I think that was my day off, and I was supposed to go back into work the next day. She said, as of immediate, you are signed off for 2 weeks. I think had a week holiday anyway booked after that, so I had 3 weeks off in total. And here's a prescription. And what they prescribed me was citalopram, or citalopram, or however it's said, but citalopram, which is an antidepressive, but it doesn't help with the anxiety. So what I was actually diagnosed with at that point was moderate depression and moderate anxiety, I believe. I think that's what it was. And that was it. So 2 weeks off. This is your diagnosis that I can give you. Sorry, that's my phone again. And have some drugs, basically. So yeah, the citalopram was really horrible. So I had the 2 weeks off, and I realise now that the 2 weeks was not just to give my brain a rest, but it was actually to get used to the drugs. And if you suffer with travel sickness, it basically felt like I was mildly travel sick for those 2 weeks. And it also completely wipes you out. Like, anxiety wipes you out anyway, but I was just like, I remember going camping because that had been booked, and I just remember like having to have a nap, like a baby has to have a nap, and it was very bizarre. And I was given 20 milligrams of citalopram initially, which was then upped to 30 milligrams of citalopram, and that wiped me out even more. I couldn't deal with 30 milligrams. It was sort of like zombifying, so I was hearing people talk to me, which obviously my job was so awful because I had to take orders, and it was just like, poop, poop. Like, it was not a fun drug to be on. It gave me a lot of confidence, which was nice, but it's a funny one. But that's just me. It might be the drug that works for you. I was then switched to sertraline, which is one I'm on now, which is much better. But yes, that was basically my diagnosis. So there was no counselling involved. I was given like a leaflet to sort out diagnosis. I was given a leaflet to sort out counselling, but then if you suffer with anxiety, actually sorting something out for yourself is so hard because you have to pick up the phone, and if you know me, I phone like one person, and that's my mum. I don't even phone Chris. I don't really phone my sister. I phone a stranger. No, thank you. No. So I still haven't had any counselling. I would love to have counselling, but I'll talk about that in the future video. So that's it. That is my diagnosis. That's what happened to get myself diagnosed and my experiences of it. Obviously this is my experience, other people may experience something completely different, but if you have any more questions about my experience, then please leave them down in the comments below. But please, 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 if you are experiencing any dark thoughts or anxiety feels or anything that you think is damaging to yourself, please go to your doctors. Nag them, get an emergency appointment if you have to. Just see someone about it. It's so important to look after your mental health. If you broke your leg, you would go to the doctors. Well, I'd hope you go to the hospital, but you know what I mean. So if you've got a broken brain, you should also go to the doctors and help yourself, really. Please find links for part 2 and 3 when they are published below, and I will link them on the end screen as well. But I hope you have enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit darker and a little bit more serious than what I usually post, so I hope it hasn't been too much for you. If you would like to, please give me a like and a comment and subscribe so you can see parts 2 and 3. Until next time guys, bye!